Greetings, my friends. Welcome to the Let's Get Gritty podcast with yours truly, Dr. India White. I'm thrilled to be here with you this evening. I hope that you are having a wonderful time just doing what you need to do to bridge the achievement gap as an educator or as a leader. And I hope that, everything's going well with your family and your friends and all the different projects that you might have brewing. With that said, I want to get right into our episode. First things first. The Let's Get Gritty podcast with Dr. India White will be featured on Spotify and all of our main social media platforms. So in order to find me on social media, my Facebook is Miss India White, LinkedIn is The India White, Twitter is Indie Speak and Teach, Instagram is Indie238, YouTube is India White 123, and TikTok is Dr. India White. In addition, check out my website whenever you get a chance at www.india-white.com for books, blogs, and to schedule me for any of your upcoming events, whether that's a PLC, professional development, workshop, training for your district, training for your, organization and whatnot. I'd be honored to come alongside you guys to support you. Also, upcoming events, I will see many of you guys at NCSM and NCTM. I wish all of you the best for those that are presenting at these conferences and beyond. Just wishing you nothing but good fortune and favor. Also, I'll see you guys at NATM in Nebraska, ICTM in Iowa, OCTM in Ohio, ATM&E in New Jersey, a Northwest Conference in British Columbia and South Carolina. I'll also be at NAPSI with you guys and beyond. Thank you to every single person that has supported this work and that has been on the front lines, just making this a possibility from the bottom of my heart. Thank you. I'm looking forward to great times with everyone. Check out the Grassroots Workshop whenever you get a chance, the Grit Mini Workshop. Thank you so much to Robert and the team for that opportunity. And I also wanted to just remind you guys to please make sure that you're also checking out some of my Facebook groups. I have a Facebook group called Grit Workbook for Teachers. Literally, that's what it's titled. So you could look that up. There's also a Facebook group, Equity Counts Book Collaboration. Again, Equity Counts Book Collaboration. I want to invite you guys to. And also, there's Grit Workbook for students, and there's also Grit Workbook Facebook group for administrators and beyond too. So there's also a Grit Workbook group for parents. So please check those out whenever you get a chance. I also wanted to remind you, parents, of the Grit Academy. I'm accepting students if you're needing some tutoring and online support. I am here to support you guys. Our team is here. We are ready. We can tutor you in math. We can tutor you in science. And so please reach out to us so that we can join forces with you. Now, this topic today, I want to talk about students and how we can really help students throughout the year, especially students that are feeling just exhausted, unplugged, and they've lost their hope. I want to talk with you today about how we can build hope in our students through grit. Again, we're going to talk about building hope through grit. Again, for those that are just joining, you might not know what grit is. Grit is the passion and perseverance to obtain a long-term goal. Dr. Duckworth is coined for that. And so let's talk about how we can actually build grit for our students. So I want to first pull up some articles that I found because it's more than just having an opinion. I think it's imperative that we know, hope, that ability to just look beyond and to want to continue to, persist and prevail in future activities after, some type of disheartening situation. It's key for students to know how to build their hope when it feels like all the air has, been popped out of their balloon. We've got to know how to help our learners. So let's go ahead and look and see, what does research say? What do some experts out here in the field, what are they saying to us about this? So first things first is I want to pull up this article. So first things first, I want to pull up this article about the power of hope, teaching and developing hopeful thinking in students. It's all about hopeful thinking, right? which is definitely cultivated by having a growth mindset and optimism. So first things first, the author here, they're saying, what is hope? Hope is not simply being optimistic or happy all the time. It's not the lottery of luck or some hope that students have for a higher grade when they haven't completed an assignment. So hope is beyond just a feeling. There has to be action to it. This is why my GRIT framework definitely helps with that. It says here, it's not that it's just wishful thinking, but it's hopeful, or yeah, that's wishful thinking, excuse me, not hopeful thinking. So they have C.R. Snyder, or excuse me, they have C.R. Sender, distinguished professional. C.R. Sender, distinguished professor of clinical psychology at the University of Kansas. They explain that hope is a positive motivational state that's based on an inner activity that is or interactively derived sense of success, agency. Okay, so the University of Kansas, he says that hope is a positive motivational state that is based on an interactively derived sense of successful agency and pathways. Again, hope is a positive motivational state that is based on an interactively derived sense of successful agency and pathways. So, what does successful agency look like in schools? I think it looks like mentoring programs. I think it looks like supportive teachers. Teachers that are willing to listen to their students and to build relationships with them. So then they talk about here, Shane Lopez in his book, Making Hope Happen, Creating the Future You Want for Yourself and Others. He defines hope as a belief that the future will be better than the present, combined with the belief that you have the power to make it so. So you have to believe that you have power. When students feel like they don't have power, then that can strip them of their hope. And that can be from different reasons, right? That could be because of they feel like there might be some hindrances, setbacks, injustices, and things that they are grappling with. So they feel like the hope is kind of snuffed out of them. So we've got to do what we can to help our kids to see the power that they do possess in their futures. So it says here, these definitions of hope, when applied to impacting student success, may be simplified by understanding that students with high hope, they design and connect with a positive future or a positive self future. They develop goals, right? Got to have goals that will lead them towards this better future. They have to have confidence and self-efficacy. There you go. Self-efficacy that's necessary to believe that they can be successful. And then here you go again. Act with perseverance to create and follow mental plans or road maps that guide hopeful thoughts. So within this whole thing, they're talking about having a positive mindset, self-efficacy, perseverance, which my framework speaks to all of that for you. So I think that this is really good work that they're doing here. Now let's look at their hope cycle. So the hope cycle. First things first, goals, having a goal. And I think also not just enough to have a goal, you need time management to fulfill those goals, right? And then, of course, here we go, self-efficacy and agency, the driving force in hopeful thinking, a sense of mental energy that over time helps to propel us towards our goal. You need that. You need to believe that you can have the ability to do that. And then, of course, here you go, resilience. It's all about resilience. It says perseverance to create and follow mental plans or roadmaps that guide hopeful thoughts. Okay. So this is the hope cycle, and I like it. So in the cycle, they have goals, self-efficacy, and then the present, and then away power. It's a pretty cool graphic. All right. And then it says, why hope? Now, this is the part I love, the research. Give me the research, right? So it says, hope research has consistently shown a positive correlation between hope and student success, with some data indicating that there's 12% an increase in academic outcomes. Lopez, 2014. Research around hope also has shown that hopeful students have higher GPAs, right, than students who score lower on a hope scale. In these studies and others, the predictive power of hope remained even when controlling for intelligence, prior grades, self-esteem, and entrance examination scores. So then they have the Gallup student poll, which is pretty popular. Okay, it says it's been a leader in collecting and analyzing student success and the HOPE data since 2009 and has had over 5 million responses. So you can trust this instrument here. So the 24 core items that makes up that scale include engagement with school and hope for the future. And in 2017, the poll indicated that only 53% of students that were participating in the poll responded that they were hopeful. So it's saying with this compelling evidence that hope does contribute to academic success. Again, hope does contribute to academic success in students, and that at best 50% of them identify as hopeful. This means that this can be an effective and efficient effort to helping them to contribute to student success. Now, let's keep going. Teaching and developing hope. So teachers, listen, teaching and developing hopeful thinking in your students. So can an individual faculty member really teach and develop hopeful thinking in their students? The answer is an overwhelmingly yes. Techniques will help students see a better future, right? Develop and be motivated to attain their goals. So you're building that grit. And so tools and techniques that support teaching and develop hope in students are in 4 categories: visioning the future, right? Developing the goals, building agency or that resilience, and then learning pathways. So this is why they need to do it through grit. And I just want to say here, I think it's interesting that they're talking about, developing goals and building agency or that resilience, and then speaking about the pathways. And to me, it's like hope is a plug that sticks into grit. Boom. Like once they have hope, once you're able to cultivate a positive mindset and get that hope going, then that helps to build that self-efficacy, which then builds that resilience, which then leads them through that time management so that they can produce that achieved or that expected outcome or the aspiring, goal that they had. So it's like hope is kind of the spark plugs that helps grit to really launch off. So, and that happens as you're helping students with the growth mindset to really help them to reset their hope through a growth mindset. Okay. So again, it's like that hope then resets, and then it helps them to then believe in themselves, believe they can do it. And then they want to be resilient so they can keep going. And then of course that leads to time management and goal setting, which helps them to produce those goals in a certain amount of time, making them gritty. So I think it's really neat that they're talking about hope. We've got to be intentional at building hope in students. Believe it or not, students do need to hear from us as educators. They need to hear us be their cheerleaders and to actually believe that they have the ability to succeed in our classes. What are the conversations we're having to our students? What are we saying? What is our dialogue like? Are we really lifting them up? Have you ever done an assessment, teachers, on yourself to see how positive are you in the classroom? What does your feedback sound like? Is it uplifting or is it degrading? Is it, constructive or is it critical? Have you really stopped? I challenge all teachers watching. Next time you're in the classroom, listen to yourself for at least 1 or 2 periods and listen to your feedback. Be intentional as you're giving feedback. And then reflect and say, how do I think I made those students feel? Do I make my students feel like, they're worth $1 million, or do I make them feel like they're the gum on the bottom of a shoe? What am I doing? Administrators, same thing. What am I saying to my teachers? What am I saying to parents, to those in the community? What am I saying even to students? Are we building or are we tearing down? And so it's imperative, because as we continue to build through positive, conversations and thoughts and celebrating our students and celebrating teachers and each other, then we're building a positive, healthy environment, which is going to contribute to higher levels of grit in the learning space. So let's get back to this article. So we were talking about teachers and how we can develop hopeful thinking in our students. So they're talking about focusing on the future, which is huge. That's a wonderful catalyst for restarting no matter what. Always bringing up the future is great in a positive light, because that's what's going to really spark back that hope and that desire to be motivated to want to try again, right? Some tools and some techniques: idealize and default thinking activities. So, have an in-class activity where students, they can close their eyes and envision what their life will be like and feel like in 5 years. Be careful with that, especially with students that are going through traumatic situations it might not be as pleasant, right? And then, of course, it says visioning activity. So now you're probably going to write it down. It says students should, be granted great leeway in how they wish to represent their vision. They could do a vision board, right? They could do a sculpture, a video, a song, poetry, or even dance. Let them have a sense of autonomy in your classroom to express their student voice and to express their train of thought in this. And then assignment utility. So the drive first is student to attend college is a desire to build a better future and more specifically future of employment. Okay. So I thought that was very interesting. And then goals. Here we go. Goal setting, time management, all of that. So goal techniques for developing goal thinking. You need to have patience and experience for students. Some students may not, have the experience of setting specific goals. I say this all the time. We assume, right, that students come to us with like the perfect package of they know how to set goals, they know how to set the calendar, they understand how to motivate themselves. Like they just get it. And I'm going to be honest, even in high school, some of our babies don't get it. Some of us need to slow down enough to sit down with the baby and help them to goal set because they don't know. Not even, sometimes they don't know. 16, 17, 18, it doesn't matter. Even at their ages, they still need our help. They think about it. How many of these students, really are having parents sitting down with them, helping them set goals, or other teachers? You'd be amazed to see the significance of the impact that it has when you do sit down with a student and do that. But then you'd be amazed to see how many kids have never had that. And they're dying for that. Like they want that from us, right? So something to keep in mind. Now let's get back to this really cool article. Now, so it also talks about how you can have class-related goals, right? Completing a certain task, and then that helps you with that time management piece. Meaningful goals, SMART goals, which are excellent. If you heard of SMART goals, I highly recommend you look into that. Affirmative goals, there you go with that growth mindset, right? I will try, I will, in a goal statement. I like it. Agency, right? So how are you going to have that sense of agency? We know we can make things happen and we take responsibility for moving forward toward our goals. It's their ability to motivate themselves, and that motivated must be aimed at goals and build their self-efficacy. I've been saying that through my work at the University of Florida and through my framework on grit. It's imperative to build the self-efficacy. You need that because how else are you going to move forward if you don't believe in yourself, right? And then it says here, some ways that you can teach and develop that is through enthusiasm in your teaching and student interactions, right? And then it's talking about having this Pygmalion mindset, strong positive expectations of an individual student and their belief in their ability to succeed in school. It's like that self-fulfilling prophecy. And then, of course, having those high expectations for students, okay? Feedback and praise. I just was talking to you guys about that, right? What do you sound like when you're giving constructive feedback or praising your students? Do you praise your students? Then it says here, Clifton Strengths for Students. This is an assessment, right? So it's probably like my grit assessment. And it talks about how it increases, student persistent and completion rates and helping to increase feelings of hope and engagement. Very interesting. Now, pathways. Pathways are routes for around the obstacles that stand in the way, right, of goal attainment. So very interesting. So Ruby Payne and oh my gosh. So they're talking about a framework for understanding poverty. If you guys have not read that book, do yourself a favor and get it like today. A framework for understanding poverty. That book changed my life years ago. Anyways, so it says she shares Ruby Payne shares that many students may not even recognize that pathways are necessary to accomplish a goal. So it's pathway blindness. They don't have a vision sometimes, right? And they're just stuck on an escalator. Powerful. This is why they need us to come along and help. And so some ways you can do that, story sharing, right? Talk about showing resilience and agency or grit, right? That helped, someone else overcome barriers and be successful. The power of grit. You can have project-based learning, which I'm a huge fan of. I'll be talking about that actually with Maggie at NCSM. So come to our session. Sequencing is providing students with logical steps required to complete an assignment, and it helps students to learn how pathways work by experiencing successful outcomes. Okay. Then student created pathways, give them that autonomy, right? And then ask them to develop a list of every step and skill required for an assignment. And then rubrics, right? Rubrics helps them to break an assignment down, but it also helps with that time management and that responsibility piece. So when you're now developing hope, there's some things they tell us you can do. Teach hope, teach your students how to learn, treat students with respect and build trust. Help your students to find and develop hope, not on their own, but by providing for them, right? And then students help them to learn how to solve the problem and not solve problems for them, right? I like that. And then here it says, hope matters. Hope is a choice. Hope can be learned, and hope can be shared with others. Absolutely beautiful. So thanks for navigating through that article with me. That was a pretty neat discussion. That was Inspired Engagement blog. Inspired Engagements. Scott's blogs. Thanks, Scott. All right. So now, that just, when you're thinking of that, I know that was a lot like, to take in of the different things we have in our control. I think, if you just really think, I have to do everything I can to help my students win, you're going to naturally cultivate hope. And I think if you really care for those kids, you're going to look into the agency piece of it to see how you can build their resilience and how you can help enhance their self-efficacy, like how you can help with that growth mindset. I remember when I used to start a class, like at the beginning of the school year, I used to do an activity where I would say to students, I want you to write for me on a piece of paper what grade you think you're going to get in my class. A, B, C, D, F. Go. And I would have the students write it, fold it, because I didn't want the class to see. And then I could say, okay, guys, go ahead and with your eyes closed, hold up the letter, or I would say, if you put an A, raise your hand. If you put a B, raise your hand with eyes closed. I wanted it confidential. You would be amazed. It was always like a bell curve. Well, actually, no, it was more like I would say kind of bell curve slash kind of like a hill leading up, kind of exponentially, but not really. Whereas I would say, how many A's? I get like 2. How many B's? I get like 4. C's? I get like 7. D's? I get like 8 or 7, 8. Like it was like really weird. F's, sometimes it was 6 or 5. Like it was very interesting to see the numbers that came in, that they would tend to increase as the letter grade got lower. I mean, except for like sometimes F's, it depended on which class. But the A's were never high. The A's were never high. It was there was always this fear. C's, I mean, overwhelming, right? And so then I would tell students, as I'm talking with them one-on-one, whatever, I say, you're already coming to me with a C hope, like a hope of a C. That's it. And then I would have to tell them, like, I want you to take the letter and realize that if that is your ceiling, that usually we don't always hit the ceiling, right? We usually hit lower. So I would say, so what I need you to do is I need you to bump it up at least a letter grade or 2. Do what you can to bump it up. And I would tell them, I don't want anyone in here feeling like they're going to fail this class. Like, I need you to understand I'm going to advocate for you on purpose. You will do well in this class. And so those are just some strategies to really build that sense of agency for students and to build up their self-efficacy the students need. They just need us to really help to build hope. And we can do that through great resilience and time, through working on their growth mindset, helping to build that self-efficacy, keeping them responsible with that time management. And then, of course, always going back to that resilience, helping them to bounce back no matter what. So now what I want to do is I want to get into another cool article. Well, actually, no, I want to get into this really cool blurb that I found. So I want to get into this now. This is how to help students build positive mindsets around math. So if you're dealing with math in particular, let's dive into this and see what they're saying.
Kids who don't do well in mathematics They need to make sense of that. And one of the ways that makes sense of that is by telling a story that perhaps math is something that only smart people can do, or perhaps they're just not a math person. People think in terms of stories because it helps them to make meaning of a lot of unexpected events in their lives. People also change across time, and so they use stories to get a sense of coherence across development. One of the biggest predictors of a student developing negative attitudes about math, for instance, is their previous experience with mathematics.
I
So I
think
think
it's
no matter
interesting.
what.
I think it's interesting he said that. Their previous experience can develop their success. I think also, like he said, stories. And I think for the parents out there and for those in the community that when a student talks about math and they're like, oh, I don't know if I can do math, we have to be careful as parents not to give a negative story, right? Like, oh, it's okay. I was horrible at math. I was horrible at algebra. I was horrible at trig. I was horrible at calculus, because then that can put, unbeknownst to us, that can put a damper on our kids and on their self efficacy and their growth mindset, right? It could make them feel like they can't do math because of what we went through as parents. So we have to be careful with that. Let's keep going.
What you do, you have to start by making sure the kids have good conceptual and procedural understanding of mathematics. So for an older kid who may be really set and having this negative story about mathematics, simply telling them that no, math can be a fun challenge, it's just not going to work as well. One more effective approach might be to highlight the moments when they grappled with math and it was actually a rewarding activity. Kids need to feel that you value improvement. And one way of doing that is by keeping a portfolio, for instance, of their previous work and helping them to look at that portfolio and see how far they've come.
I love that. That's that. Seeing how the resilience has paid off, how their grit levels have, kicked in and helped them to achieve success. So,
So a lot of people who study reflection during math classrooms and classrooms more generally found that giving students multiple opportunities to think about why they feel certain ways, for instance, can have really positive benefits. It can help change the interpretation they take about stress. A lot of kids think that stress means that you're not going to do so well on the upcoming examination, for instance. But kids who get a chance to retell a story about stress will actually look at stressful situations in a very different light. Now they'll see stress as an energizing force that can help them to think more critically.
I like that. I like that. So stress is not always a bad thing. You need stress to get through, right? You need that resilience. You build resilience. Stress is a great way to do that.
A lot of kids who are very successful with mathematics, but for some reason they end up not telling a very positive story about math. They become perfectionists, for instance. So I think really we want to help kids to be successful in math, but we also want to make sure that we can guide their interpretation of their past experiences with mathematics.
I like that. Guiding their interpretation. This is why it's important that we have positive feedback and celebration of our kids.
Even though some kids don't do so well at math, if they have a positive interpretation or a positive story about their experience around math, that can be a significant predictor of whether they develop more positive attitudes about mathematics down the line.
And then that's cultivating that growth mindset, which is well needed in order for our kids to be successful. So, thanks for letting me share that. I do want to look at one more article for us that kind of talks about building hope and how we can help students to develop hope. So I found this. This is a Greater Good magazine, science-based insights. So how to help students develop hope. So according to research, hope is a key to an academic achievement, and it's a skill set that students can develop over time. And here's how. So this is by Vicky Z. I'm going to leave it at that. It says, I hope I get an A on this test. Many times have teachers heard these exact words from students. Goodness knows most teachers would certainly love for their students to get an A too, right? And then she's talking about how we have to cultivate hope and how it's a complicated process. Let's get into the research. She says researchers have found that students who are high in hope have greater academic success, stronger friendships, and demonstrate more creativity and better problem solving. They also have lower levels of depression and anxiety and are less likely to drop out of school. But does this mean that hope causes these benefits, or couldn't success in school and making friends just give students more hope? So in fact, studies suggest that having hope may actually predict a student's future academic achievement more than having feelings of self-worth or a positive attitude towards life actually do. Wow. So hope is really imperative here. So it says, how do teachers know which students are high in hope? It's easy. They don't take failure personally. And this is why you need that sense of growth mindset in self-efficacy. They're also more optimistic. There you go. In the face of obstacles, that's that resilience. And they tell themselves, I can do this. I won't give up. So then they become gritty. They choose to persevere and persist no matter what. Right? And then they surpass their own expectations and it just never stops. All right, let's keep going. So it says, hope does not mean that it's wishful thinking, like, I hope I win the lottery. Instead, hope, you have to know how to do the following things. Set clear, obtainable goals. And of course, that's goal setting done with time management. Develop multiple strategies to achieve those goals. Stay motivated, right? Through resilience, I believe, to use those strategies to attain those goals, right? Even when the going gets tough, that's resilience. Okay. Identify and prioritize your goals from macro to micro. Okay, that's good. And then it talks about having a solutions-oriented approach whenever you're looking at those goals. These goals have to focus on accomplishing something in the future, goal setting, right? Time management, rather than avoiding something now. So, for instance, I want to play on the basketball team is more effective motivating goal than I will stop drinking soda. All right. Next, breaking down the goals into smaller, into steps, like long-term goals, breaking those down into steps. Good. Okay. And then teaching students that there's more than one way to reach a goal. I like that because that gives them that flexibility and a sense of autonomy in the process. And then telling stories of success. Scientists have found that hopeful students draw on the memory of successes when they face an obstacle. However, those students with low hope often don't have these kinds of memories. So this is why it's vital for teachers to read, right? So that they have something to hope towards, something to look towards. And then, of course, keeping it light and positive. This will help them to enjoy the process of attaining their goal. And then, of course, no self-pity allowed. Then here you go. It's talking about that positive self-talk, building themselves up for mistakes. And they're doing that, it's more likely to reach their goals. So that's pretty neat read there for us on building hope. So I think you can see that it's imperative that students need teachers and parents, I believe, when it comes down to helping to build hope. And that's through, building that sense of agency, helping with goal setting, helping with that positive mindset, that optimism, self-efficacy, resilience, and then also to attain that goal in a certain amount of time with time management, which basically speaks to the framework on grit that I've been honored to share with all of you rock stars. So with that said, continue to do what you do in your best way to navigate through the hardships and the things that students are going through to build their hope through grit. Remind them to have great resilience in time and continue to knock it out and rock it out with each of your learners, and also do the same for yourself. So thanks so much for joining me today on the Let's Get Gritty podcast with yours truly, Dr. India White. And again, I would love to remind you guys that this Let's Get Gritty podcast will be featured on Spotify and social media platforms. You can check out also my website, www.india-white.com, for books, blogs, and to schedule me for an event. If you want to follow me on social media, you have not yet. Thank you for those that have. And thank you for those that have been sharing my podcast and recommending it and helping. My Facebook is Miss India White. LinkedIn is The India White. Twitter is Indie Speak and Teach. Instagram is Indie238. YouTube is India White 123. And TikTok is Dr. India White. Looking forward to seeing you guys at these amazing upcoming events. I know many of us are thinking about NCSM and NCTM. Can't wait to see the math family across this nation and the wonderful things that you guys are going to be doing. I just can't wait for all of us to just come together. And then, of course, check out the Grit Mini Workshop on the Grassroots Workshops website. And also make sure that you continue to let me know, like, how is this podcast supporting you and your team. I would love to hear from you guys whenever you see me out and about at one of these wonderful places, these conferences and whatnot, so that we could talk together about just the impact of not only this podcast, but the great things that you're doing as well, great things that we're doing together. So thank you so much again for joining me. Until next time, stay gritty. See ya.